Hi, welcome again to Off the Page. I'm Leslie Choice. My guest today is Michael Dwyer. He comes down from Newfoundland to visit us. He's the author of Sea of Heartbreak. He's been a fisherman and he's been a sealer, and now he's an author of his second book. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Leslie. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. It's quite a story you have to tell. Now, take me back to that morning that you were given the job offer to go fishing, and quite a fishing expedition it was. How were you feeling that day?
Desperate for work?
How desperate?
Oh, desperate. I have a growing family and no work. Expenses pile up, and this day and age it seems like in order to make ends meet you need two people working in the family. And because I wasn't working, we were falling short on a lot of things. And being out of work causes a lot of stress between a spouse and his husband, or husband and wife, and kids. And at the time that phone call came, I thought it was a godsend.
Okay, and what kind of boat was it?
It was a 65-foot steel fishing vessel, standard type, you know, wheelhouse forward and shelter deck on it, and accommodations for 7 crew members.
And how long were you going to be away for?
2 months. We planned for 2 months.
2 months with the same men on board. Pretty
Yes.
tight situation.
Yeah, and I didn't have a bunk to sleep in, by the way. I had to sleep in the wheelhouse for the duration of that, and that made for uncomfortable time at some times, some rough seas.
The name of the boat was The Styx?
Yeah, in my book.
S-T-Y-X?
Yes.
Isn't that some river or something on one side of hell?
Yeah, it is. And I thought that was a very, very appropriate name. My daughter suggested it one day when she was reading it. She said, "My God, this sounds like a hell of a trip."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, now what would be a good name?" And
oh, okay. So that wasn't the real name of the boat.
No.
You've fictionalized that little bit.
Yes,
of it. The rest
I
of the
didn't
story
put in
is
the
true.
true name
Yes,
of the
that's
boat,
right.
no.
Some of the names have been changed.
Yes.
Where were you headed?
We were headed for Ungava Bay. That's Cape Chidley, Northern Labrador.
Most people don't know too much about that coast, Northern Labrador.
About the 60th parallel.
Way up there.
Yes. Yeah. Just northeasternmost corner of the North American continent.
Unbelievable. Why did you have to go so far to catch fish?
Well, traditionally, the traditional fishing grounds off of the northeast coast of Newfoundland was overfished to the point where, now this was the opinion of the captain. I had no say in where we went, but this was the general consensus of the crew. And Ungava Bay was going to be open for the first time in history to turbot fishing, and the captain and the crew both figured that they would have a better chance of making a more lucrative profits by going to north to Ungava Bay as opposed to going out to fishing grounds that they knew were already fished out.
And turbot is sort of like a fish that can bring in good money.
Oh well, yeah. If you can catch it, you can get good money. That's why we were getting paid 80 cents per pound for #1 turbot. Mm-hmm. And the talk going north was that we were going to get probably 50,000 or 60,000 pounds per trip out of our 350 nets.
Yes.
So that made up for pretty good money. But
good money to be made.
Yes, but as it happened, we didn't come close to that. We never landed 50,000 pounds in 5 trips.
Mm-hmm. But this sounds like a very dangerous enterprise. You're going north. Mm-hmm. There's icebergs. Mm-hmm. There's storms. There's huge waves. Yeah. Were you thinking about that when you headed up that way?
Well, I knew that when I set out after the first day, it was nice and calm, and seas were beautiful, and I knew it wasn't going to last. You got to suffer the whatever storms are going to come. We fished 200 miles off of the land, 180, 200 miles off, and there's some vicious tides up there as well. And we just, I guess it was kind of late to be going north. We never went till late in August, and September and October, and we just never had, the weather did not cooperate with us at all. It was horrific.
Aside from the weather and those dangers, the people, your crewmates, what was the first sign that it wasn't going to be a pleasant journey?
When they shot the birds. My first full day aboard.
What do you need rifles on a boat for?
Well, now I was just speaking to, it's about the same thing this morning. If you're going ashore in territory where it's inhabited by grizzly bears and, you know, massive carnivores, I agree with taking protection, but out at sea, I don't know if a crab would threaten you enough to want to shoot it, or, you know, I don't see there's any necessary.
No.
I don't see the point of it. No.
So your crewmates were out doing this for sport, for fun?
Yeah, I think, yeah, they were like a bunch of wild colonial boys that are stuck back in the 1900s and never ever came out of it.
Hmm. So, and that struck you deeply. There's something fundamentally wrong
Killed me, because I knew there was no job here for me now. As soon as they shot that little bird and let it go in the water, and I knew that.
Well, so
you know,
you were in a bad situation. You were stuck there for a long time. If you opened your mouth, you were in big trouble.
Oh well, I was told that by one of the crew members who didn't partake in, you know, the cruelty that went on there, and he told me, you know, you better not say nothing until you get back ashore, because
Yes.
it's a big ocean out here, and the fishing game is dangerous. It is dangerous. There's nets going, lines going, the ship is going at high speeds, and the rails are rough, and there's lots of ways to get injured. And
You could be one of them.
and
one of the
I could
victims
be a
there.
statistic.
Let's step back from the voyage for just a minute and remind us all what happened to the Newfoundland fishery. Once upon a time, this was lucrative. The stories about the density of the cod off the coast of Newfoundland. Where did it all go?
Well, I'll tell you where it didn't go. It never went into the pockets of the outport people in Newfoundland. Yeah, like you just said, from the time when John Cabot came here, when the ocean was teeming with fish, if 1 cent per pound had to come through the pockets of the people in the outports would be billionaires today, and they're not. So where it went to was overseas. But see, that's how we got Newfoundland in the beginning anyway, Leslie. Like, we were sent to Newfoundland for no other purpose, only to take from the sea and nature and ship back to Britain.
Yes, to harvest what was there.
That's all we were, that's all we knew. Now, this attitude that's portrayed in the book, really, in some ways, it's not their fault, because that's all we were sent here for, to take from nature and send back. Now, I'm a fisherman. I spent 2 months making a net, a few years ago, when you had to make your own nets. And this net, I'm dependent on this net to make a good summer for me and my family, a good year. I put out my net, I go out in the morning, there's a whale in it. A whale, got it all torn to pieces. Now, I don't like that whale very much, do I? I got my son in the boat, I'm going to shoot it, right? And this attitude was just, now in some cases, like in the colonial, this group's case, but we're not all like that. You know, we're not.
Right.
If we were all like it, there'd be nothing left out there.
And your book certainly illustrates the difference between individuals and how they see things. Now, you've been a sealer. That's a really thorny issue for most mainlanders when they think about the sealing industry. So you would go on a ship and you'd go up north on the ice floes and harvest the seals.
Yes. Yes.
How did you feel about that while you were doing it?
I didn't mind that at all, because I know in my heart there are lots of seals. There's something in the order of 6 to 8 million. I don't think that's counting what's been born this year, which is probably another 2 million. And all the seals that we shot we utilized.
Yes.
You know, we went over the side and we dragged them back and we cleaned them and we pelted them, and all the meat was kept and the pelts was kept and it was all brought in. And so I didn't mind that much, even though it was carnage. Like where there was not that much wastage, it didn't affect me. That's like shooting birds. I'll shoot a bird to eat, or any time of the year.
So it's the waste.
Just the waste. We're killing it in waste.
The
senselessness of it.
What's it like out on the ice as a sealer? That's the stories that I've heard, the pictures that are in my mind are quite horrific.
Well, yes, I would say that it is, bar none, the most dangerous fishing game there is, sealing. Crab fishing is dangerous, but what makes sealing so dangerous is that you've got to leave the ship and cross the floes in order to retrieve
So
your...
you're walking on ice that could open up at any minute.
Oh, and I have videos home where the swells get underneath the ice, and it's tossing the ice probably 20 feet up in the air, you know, on the swell. 1 minute is 20 feet over your head, and the next minute you're up looking down. And this action causes the pans to go apart and come together. So if you happen to fall in when the ice is going together, you get crushed naturally.
Yes. Have you seen people injured?
Oh yes, multiple injuries. But the way it is, a lot of injuries are not reported because if you spend too much time injured, someone else will take your place.
Do you think it's worth it, men going up on the ice for seals, for seal pelts?
I don't know if it's worth it. There are chances that you can make a lot of money. And you're really doing the herd a favor by culling them. You know, we only take a small percentage of them. There's 8 million, we take 275,000. That's what we're allotted. In last year, half the quota was not taken. But yeah, it could be worth it. It could be worth it.
How do you feel when you hear the Greenpeace folks and other environmentalists from the South who are not from Newfoundland, who don't know the generations of people who work there and, you know, and the circumstances? How do you feel when you hear the protests?
Well, I'm for organizations like Greenpeace and Sierra Club, any organization that's out to protect the environment and the critters that's in it, I'm for it. Now, I don't agree with their tactics. You know, they came in and, you know, they are selling their point. And I got no qualms with Greenpeace. I think, great, carry on. Yeah. Personally.
Would you do it again? Would you go back to the sealing? If the
no, it's not worth it to me anymore. I was of low self-esteem at that time, you know, and I want to work again, and I would sacrifice my body to earn money, but not at that because it's just too dangerous. I have a video of my own, about an hour and a half of sealing video, and when I look at it, it just gives me the creeps, and I got to thank God that I made it back.
Well,
pardon me?
You find yourself in various dangerous positions and various dangerous kinds of work there.
It's exciting, though, you know, and it's interesting. And
let's go back to the ship, to the boat Styx here. And you've headed off from Newfoundland. You're headed north all the way toward Ungava Bay. Describe the icebergs of Iceberg Alley.
Oh, it was beautiful. I don't think that year they were ever as plentiful before.
Beautiful but dangerous.
Oh yeah. Just it seems like the sea is that way, you know. There's a double-edged sword there, and they are. But awesome. One was as flat as a cake. I bet you a small plane could just land on it, take off, and they're beautiful. Beautiful. They are dangerous, but the bergs are not as dangerous as the small pieces that break off of them, like the growlers.
The growlers.
Yeah. That is the dangerous part.
You don't see the top of the growler. It's a big, huge chunk of ice, tons and tons and tons.
Yeah. And you can't see it because it's so low in the water, and the radar, whereas these big bergs, the radar can detect them, but the little ones, they can't. And if you hit a growler, chances are you're going to have a serious damage done.
But wait a minute, you're in a boat, you're headed north up Iceberg Alley. You can see the icebergs, and you literally just steer around them. You're not the Titanic, but
no.
You can see them and go around them. But the others you can't detect by radar?
Yeah, well, hey, I remember looking for growlers in the middle of the night, and the storm of wind.
How do you see them in the middle of the night?
You don't, just what I say. How the hell am I going to see anything out there? I'm not. Most of the time, you're just winging a prayer.
So you're hoping instinctively you can sense something being there?
In the spotlight. You hope you can see something in the spotlight, but lots of times you realize that, boy, it's going to be lucky if you do, and you don't know how many you graze by.
Now, economically, it sounds like not a very promising venture if the potential for disaster is so great. So there's a tremendous amount of risk-taking, even on the part of the folks who get into this.
But what do these fishermen do? They're fishermen. They can't drive a truck. I mean, if the sea is dangerous and there's fishermen, they got to put up with the dangers. What else most they can do is have bigger ships and weather bigger storm, worse or bad storms, and make it as comfortable for them as they can. But if they're fishermen, they got to be on the sea, and whether you're in a little boat or in a big one, you got to take what you dish out. It just comes down to your seamanship.
And you grew up with this, did you, along the coast of
Oh
Newfoundland?
yes, my father was a master mariner that sailed the 7 seas many times. World War I veteran. Yeah.
So this venture of still heading out to sea was something, it was a bit in your blood.
Oh yes, it wasn't my first time at sea.
Yeah.
First time I went to sea, my father owned his own little boat, and he tipped over a Coke box under the steering wheel, and I stepped up on it about 5 years old, I guess.
And you were the captain?
He told me from then on it was wave over wave and sea over bow.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it.
We're going to take a short break and be back with Michael Dwyer right after this. Welcome back to Off the Page. Today I'm speaking with Michael Dwyer from Newfoundland. His book is called Sea of Heartbreak, about a fishing expedition to the far north. Now, you tell us in the book about using gill nets. You're not a big fan of gill nets.
No.
How do they work?
A gill net it's a monofilament twine, and it works by entangling a fish by the gills. That's why it's called a gill net, certainly. And this causes the fish to drown and die in the net.
All the fish you catch?
Oh yes.
Not just the ones
maybe
you want.
crabs may, I don't know, maybe they might survive, but most of the creatures that we brought up from the depths were dead. But what makes them so effective is and dangerous and bad for the environment is that they indiscriminately catch everything. And a gill net is 300 feet long, and it's 18 feet deep. And we tie 50 nets together to make a fleet, right? And then you set this.
Drag them behind your.
No.
You set them.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're set up like a fence on the ocean bottom,
Mm-hmm.
right? The foot ropes are weighted down, and the head ropes they float up, so there's like a fence across the ocean floor. And what happens is the creatures entangle in them, and then the net will settle down to the bottom with the weight of the creatures. And then if the net is not pulled in time, within 4 or 5 days, well, certainly the enzymes within the fish works upon itself and it eats the fish. And then this, I guess, attracts more crabs and one thing and another. And eventually the sea action and nature breaks down the contents of the gill net, and then it'll float up again. And this could go on
Catch
for
more
probably maybe estimated 30 to 35 years, depending on the temperature of the water.
So if a fisherman leaves one behind, if he lost it,
yeah,
then it stays in the ocean, and because of that plastic that it's made out of, it lasts for years and years and years and continues its destruction.
forever. Well, I don't know about forever, but in cold water, we were fishing in a mile of water, 1 mile deep, 900 fathoms, 800 fathoms, 900 like that. So at depths like that, with temperatures so cold, maybe that might last for 50 years.
So you're telling us people shouldn't be using these gill nets at all?
Well, sure, it's been proven for the last 30 years that gill nets are destructive to the environment. But still now, we keep pumping them out and setting them out and losing them. On our trip, we took 350 nets north, and I'd say we left 150 or 200 out, still fishing. It's only 2 years ago.
Very sad. What about
That's deplorable.
when you hauled up the nets, and that was part of your job, hauling these things back up
From
on
the
board.
Gertie, yeah.
And so what do you do with the fish? You're looking for the turbot. Those are the good ones. What about the rest?
The rest are picked out of the net. What'll happen, the net comes in over the side with the help of the Gertie. The men are assembled along by a picking table, and they pick all the creatures out of the webbing. And then there's 2 guys back in the pound on the stern that'll pull the net back and prepare it for the next time you shoot it out. Number 1 turbot was put in a tank to be gutted and iced in the hole, and whatever wasn't number 1 turbot was thrown out the portal.
So this is part of the tragedy of what you're saying about this voyage and many others like it, is this incredible waste.
Wastage, yes. If we had to bring back all that we caught, we would have had our 50 pounds, 1,000 pounds a trip and more. But we didn't. was heartbreaking, and with some beautiful creatures, you know, like manta rays and basking sharks and all kinds of sponges and a lot of creatures down there. And it just break your heart, boy, to see it go out, you know.
What's going on in your head? Because a lot of that, you know, when you're back there in the ship and you're seeing this kind of destruction, you're taking it personally, from what I gather, as you tell us this story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to keep your mouth shut among
come
the
on,
crew.
October.
Yeah,
that's all I
in
kept
their battle.
Thinking. Yeah, I kept thinking, come on, daylight, come on, dark, come on, October.
Just
get this
survive
over
through
with.
it and get back home.
Yeah. I knew I had no place on this ship. I didn't want a place on this ship.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was back looking for work. But I had to work in the meantime. It was a small ship in a big sea and a dangerous work. So I bit my tongue. A couple of occasions I went as far as further than I should have gone, but I just couldn't keep it in.
Mm. And the guns came out again, the rifles came out, shooting at
what I said to them never
porpoises?
affected whales.
You had whales, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just shoot at them for sport.
Polar bears,
Mm-hmm.
black bears, baby birds, old birds, whatever come handy to the rail.
Broke your heart each time it happened?
Yeah, well, I got used to it after a while. You know, you get used to the gunfire, but all I kept thinking about getting home.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell. I'd have to tell. I wouldn't be able to keep that in.
And that's what your story is here.
And that's it's not a pretty story, but I feel it. If we can change a few attitudes, save a few creatures, well,
The truth
that's
has to
the
be
whole
out there.
point of my book is to do. Not to, I don't want to, like, I'm not like these people. I don't want to burn with bends, with the bends that's in there. And I know a lot of my fellow Newfoundlanders are not like that. I don't want them to burn with the bends. I don't even want the bends to burn. I like for the bends to just have a change of attitude and give up the guns and maybe pay more homage to the resource, have a little bit more respect, and that would be fulfillment for me.
You're going to get some flack from
yeah,
people you know,
I'm
from people back home.
Well,
You ready for
there's
it?
circumstances beyond my control. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I can stand it. Resources are dying. Tons and tons and tons of it. There's 1 million feet of fishing vessels of the highest technology on the oceans every day, every minute of the year. That's just 65 feet of it for less than 2 months.
Yeah, your boat was 65 feet.
That's
and
right, and there's millions of
bigger
feet on the,
boats
1 million
out there.
feet of vessels on the oceans of the world, taken and taken and taken. Now, like I said, that's just a small, that's not even the tip of the iceberg,
Tip
is
of
it?
the iceberg. Michael, we're going to take another short break.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with Michael Dwyer right after this. My guest today has been Michael Dwyer. Michael, take me to the middle of a storm, Labrador Sea. I don't know, what was the worst storm that happened on that trip? What was it like?
Oh, nightmarish. The nights seemed to be the worst when you couldn't see. You'd have your spotlight on, lighting your way, and with the high seas, the main thing is, like, we have stabilizers, arms on the ship, and what you got to do is make sure you don't break a stabilizer arm, because if that happens, you got a ton of chain and metal hanging underneath your hull, and you're going to be in trouble.
Yes.
And the other big danger is keeping the windows intact, because all ships now is all electronically computerized, and if you get salt water or a big rush of water over your console, well, that could render you helpless in the storm as well.
Sounds like a treacherous game.
Okay. But it's exciting and it's exhilarating, and you're alive. I remember sitting in a chair and just like a bronco.
I'm glad you survived, and thanks for coming and sharing
Well,
your stories
thank
with
you
us.
very much.
Michael Dwyer was my guest today, and I'll see you again on Off the Page.